From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report. Many Americans start to closely follow weather reports in the early fall during the Atlantic hurricane season. Predicting the strength and movement of these huge storm systems is of crucial importance. Thanks to new supercomputers, meteorologists for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, are getting better at predicting the weather as far as 6 days out. Hurricane Sandy hit the East Coast last October and caused deaths and widespread damage. It was one of the costliest storms in United States history. At the time, some people blamed meteorologists for not correctly predicting the path of the storm. But weather forecasting is extremely difficult, says Ben Kiger. He is the Director of Central Operations at NOAA's National Centers for Environmental Prediction in College Park, Maryland. Ben Kiger says oceans are another issue because they closely interact with the atmosphere and have a huge effect on storms. NOAA has spent about $20 million on 2 new supercomputers in an effort to improve the dependability of its forecasts. It takes a huge amount of computational power to examine data from weather satellites, ground stations, and other sources. It then takes a lot of power to predict temperature, air pressure, humidity, and wind speed. But human brains and experience are still very important to the process. Meteorologists at the National Centers for Environmental Prediction scan the same data that the supercomputers get before issuing a weather report. NOAA issues worldwide forecasts every 6 hours, every day of the year. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Economics Report in Special English. Ethiopia is one of the last countries in Africa to permit mobile banking. Mobile banking has proved to be profitable in the developing world, where many people still do not use banks. Earlier this year, the World Bank reported that 75% of the world's poor are unbanked. That is about 2.5 billion people. Banking through mobile phones lets people take part in financial services even if they are not near a bank. Until recently, Ethiopia and Zimbabwe were the only nations in Africa without mobile money services. Now, that has changed for Ethiopia. Belcash and Mbir are mobile banking technology providers. They have been setting up mobile banking and mobile money services in Ethiopia for the past 3 years. The Dutch company Belcash is working in partnership with banks to provide easier access to financing through bank accounts. Ireland-based Mbir is a mobile money service that works with microfinance groups where no registration with a bank is needed. Ethiopia's mobile phone industry is young, and wireless service coverage in the country is not well developed. The pressure on the wireless network is expected to increase. In the past 4 years, the number of mobile users grew from 3 to 17 million, and Ethiopia's telecommunications provider, Ethio Telecom, expects that number to grow to 40 million in the next 3 years. The government closely controls Ethiopia's telecommunications market. That means there is only one provider. Competition is not permitted. The National Bank of Ethiopia recently finished a draft order on how mobile banking services should be structured. This comes as international companies have shown interest in starting mobile banking services. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn. This is the VOA Special English Technology Report. American lawmakers have expanded an investigation into the use of location tracking systems on mobile devices. This follows recent reports about the storing of information on the Apple iPhone, iPad, and iTouch. Questions have also been raised about Google Android devices. Some people consider location tracking to be a threat to personal privacy and security. Alan Friedman is the Research Director for Technology and Innovation at the Brookings Institution in Washington. He says all wireless companies do some amount of location tracking as part of their networks. Mr. Friedman says this information is usually stored by the companies, not the devices, and there are laws to protect it. He says law enforcement, for example, has to have a fairly high standard before it can access that data. And the phone company is also prohibited from selling that information. Congress discussed the issue of mobile privacy last year. Now, 2 researchers reported that location tracking information is being stored directly on Apple devices. They said Apple's newest operating systems gather global positioning system and timestamp information. The information is stored on the device in a file that is also uploaded to any computer that the device is connected to. The researchers say the information is available to anyone who has access to the device or computer. Alan Friedman says applications that a user buys or gets tricked into downloading might also be able to access this data and somehow misuse it. Apple said it is not tracking the location of your iPhone. The company said the phone simply keeps a database of Wi-Fi hotspots and cell phone towers near the user's location. Apple said this is meant to help your iPhone rapidly and accurately calculate its location when requested. In late April, leaders of the House Energy and Commerce Committee sent letters to some of the leading mobile device developers. These include Apple and Google. The letters asked for more information about their location tracking systems. Alan Friedman says there should be stronger controls over things like location data. He says we need to understand who is getting this information, how long they are keeping it, and what exactly they are doing with it. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. For more stories about technology and for English teaching activities, go to voaspecialenglish.com.
I'm Alex Villarreal with the VOA Special English Technology Report. Mobile phone technology is quickly changing the way the world operates. Today, we tell about two new projects involving mobile health, also known as mHealth. Doctors and technology experts in London are developing a new way to test for sexual infections. The new device uses mobile phones and computers to help people find out if they have been infected with a sexual disease. People will be able to perform the test in the privacy of their own homes. People place urine or saliva on a small piece of paper. They place the test strip in a small device that contains a computer chip. Then they place the device in their mobile phone or a computer for testing. Within minutes, they receive information telling them if they have a sexual disease. And they receive advice on what to do next. Claudia Estcourt is with Barts and the London School of Medicine and Dentistry. She is also part of the research team working on the project. She says, "This isn't designed to replace traditional clinics. This is really opening testing up to people who might find it embarrassing or difficult to get into their clinic." Health experts say many young people are too ashamed to visit a clinic to be tested. This increases the risk of them passing on sexual diseases. The researchers hope the tests will help persuade people to be tested and reduce the number of sexually transmitted infections. Dr. Estcourt says the project is still 7 to 10 years away from completion. But she says it holds great promise for the future, especially in developing countries. In other news, researchers at the University of Toronto in Canada are studying a mobile phone system that may help people with diabetes control their blood pressure. The system collects blood pressure readings from home testing devices that have wireless technology. The readings are then sent to a healthcare monitoring system. Patients receive a mobile phone message telling them how they are doing. If their blood pressure is too high, they are advised to make an appointment with their doctor. Several high readings will cause the system to automatically contact the doctor. Patients in the study used the mobile phone system for 1 year. The researchers found that 37% of the patients were able to get their blood pressure under control. This compares with about 14% of patients using common equipment. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal with the VOA Special English Development Report. International donors have promised almost $12 billion to the Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. The Global Fund held a 2-day conference in October in New York City. This is the largest pledge the 8-year-old organization has ever received. Stefan Emblad is the director of resource mobilization. He said the fund received a 20% increase in contributions. Still, the pledges were $1 billion below the lowest estimate of the amount needed to fight the diseases effectively. In March, the Global Fund proposed 3 different plans from 13 to $20 billion. The Global Fund is a partnership of public and private organizations. This fund has become the main source of money for programs to treat and prevent AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. Donations support programs in more than 140 countries. Nearly 3 million people are receiving treatment for the AIDS virus through Global Fund programs. 143 million people receive malaria drugs, and 7 million new cases of TB have been diagnosed and treated since the fund began in 2002. Global Fund officials estimate that their programs have saved more than 5 million lives. Stefan Emblad says these efforts will continue. He said the organization will not be cutting funding to any of the existing programs. Those programs will continue over the next few years to put more people on treatment and to have more prevention and care efforts. But they will not be at the same level as in the last 2 years. Mr. Emblad says some of the Millennium Development Goals are still reachable with this new level of funding. He said, "We could eliminate malaria as a public health threat in malaria endemic countries. We could also eliminate the transmission of HIV from pregnant mothers to their unborn babies." He said these goals could be met by 2015 if countries see them as most important. More than 40 donor countries, organizations, and businesses attended the conference in New York. The United States promised to give $4 billion over the next 3 years, the largest donor pledge ever. The United States was the first donor to the fund and remains the largest. France is second, followed by Japan, Britain, and Canada among the top 5. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal.
This is the VOA Special English Technology Report. A team of scientists in the United States has created a new kind of mouse that has an immune system similar to that of humans. The scientists hope their research with these mice will speed up development of a vaccine to prevent human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV. Scientists from the Reagan Institute of Massachusetts General Hospital, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and Harvard are carrying out the new research. Earlier research has shown that certain individuals with HIV have immune systems that do better at controlling the AIDS virus. These individuals are commonly known as elite controllers. They often live longer with the virus and have fewer problems early on. Todd Allen is one of the lead authors of the new study, which was published in Science Translational Medicine. He says some people are able to control HIV very well. By using the new experimental mice, the researchers hope to learn what it is about the immune systems of these elite controllers that causes them to deal with the HIV virus better than others. The humanized mice were created using stem cells and tissue from human donors. Some of the tissue was taken from the liver and thymus. The thymus is a large gland at the bottom of the throat. It trains T lymphocytes, or T cells, to attack unwelcome microbes. In that way, it protects the body from infection. When the scientists infected the so-called humanized mice with the HIV virus, the T cell reaction in the mice was exactly the same as that of humans. Earlier research using rhesus monkeys helped scientists understand how the virus attacks cells. These monkeys were seen as good replacements for humans because they could easily be infected with the primate version of HIV, known as SIV. But genetic differences in the two versions of the virus and the immune systems suggested that monkeys were not the best candidates for HIV research. Todd Allen says the experiments with the new humanized mouse did a better job of showing what happens in the human body with the AIDS virus. He says the experimental mouse permits researchers to test the discoveries they have made about individuals infected with HIV. Todd Allen and the other researchers hope further studies with the humanized mouse will lead to an HIV vaccine. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Pursuit.
This is the VOA Special English Technology Report. Recent developments in China and India put the issue of internet censorship back in the news. In China, the country's largest microblogging service announced new policies to restrict what its users can put online. Sina Weibo is a Twitter-like service that lets users publish short messages and pictures. There are about 300 million Sina Weibo users. The service has been under increasing pressure from the Chinese government to censor more of its content. In early May, Sina Weibo announced new policies aimed at preventing what it called offensive or questionable material from being posted online. The company said that includes information that is untrue or threatens the honor of the nation. It also includes information that promotes evil teachings or destroys societal stability. Chad Cataccio is an American-based blogger who follows technology news from China. He says the new policies are not necessarily a surprise. He says these kinds of rules have existed for a while on the internet in China. Take it for what it is, he says, and adds that at least Sina Weibo is putting the policies in writing publicly. What remains to be seen, he says, is what that means and if that's good for the users. Sina Weibo said its new policies would take effect May 28th. In April, the company deleted several user accounts after stories of a possible government overthrow spread across its service. Sina Weibo was among several microblogging services that the Chinese government punished for failing to block the rumors. Also, in March, the government announced new rules requiring microblog users to register their accounts using their real names. China has more than 500 million internet users. To control internet use, the country has one of the largest and most developed censorship systems in the world. Websites like Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube are blocked in China. In India, the Delhi High Court again delayed censorship hearings against Facebook and Google. The move in early May was the second time the hearings had been delayed this year. Facebook and Google are among a group of companies accused of not censoring offensive content on their websites. The Delhi High Court set a new hearing date for August 7th. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. You can learn English and find more stories about internet censorship issues at voaspecialenglish.com. I'm Alex Villarreal with the VOA Special English Technology Report. A new website plans to use social media to help women in Egypt find unwanted sexual attention. The website is harassmap.org. The idea is to offer different ways for women to report sexual harassment as soon as it happens. For example, they could send a text message by phone, or they could report incidents directly through the website or through email, Facebook, or Twitter. The website will then map the reports with different colored dots. Purple, for example, represents unwanted touching. Blue is for loud, offensive comments or whistling. Rebecca Chow helped create HarassMap. She says most of the reports gathered during testing include more than one offense. The site also lists whether or not a report has been confirmed. Mrs. Chow is a former employee of the Egyptian Center for Women's Rights. In 2008, the center released a report on sexual harassment in Egypt. Researchers interviewed more than 1,000 women. This included more than 100 foreigners living or traveling in Egypt. 98% of the foreign women said they had been sexually harassed. So did 83% of the Egyptian women. Rebecca Chow says harassmap.org will help warn the public about areas where there is a high risk of harassment. It could also help police identify areas where security should be increased. And she says the system will provide another important service. She says the system will send a response to the person reporting the harassment. It will include a list of services that the woman can contact if she needs help with legal aid, making a police report, or finding psychological help. The women will also be able to share their stories online with other victims of sexual harassment. A similar project was launched in 2005 in New York City. Victims can go to ihollaback.org to share stories of street harassment and to upload pictures of accused offenders. There are now 10 Hollaback websites around the world, and more are planned. Earlier this month, Hollaback released an application for the Apple iPhone that lets users report harassment as soon as it happens. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. You can find our reports online at voaspecialenglish.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter at VOA Learning English.